Hi there Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk Bounty video. Welcome to episode 149 of Ask Boss Bounty. This is the weekly Q&A series that drops every Sunday, where I take your questions from the comment section below, do my very best to answer them for you, and that's basically how it works. If you do have a question for next week's episode and you want to be featured, leave it in the comment section below, and I do apologise if you weren't featured this week. We have loads of great questions again this week, loads of things to talk about, PulseCon, Return of the Jedi, loads and loads going on. So if you do happen to enjoy the video, don't forget to drop a like down below, because that really does help the video and the channel. And we're going to get straight on to the first question. Mando Brunt, who is a brand new Patreon supporter of mine, so thank you so much for the support, my friend. He says, hi BB, another great show. My question for next week is, with the announcement of the Figure and Dan 7-pack, could this be a sign that Hasbro could possibly be doing further army builder packs at 7 figures as opposed to 4? Keep up the great content, sir. Thank you for the question, Mando Brunt. I hope not, to start with, but I don't think they will. I think the 7-pack is a special one for the 7 band members. I think there's 8 band members in total, so with Figure and Dan, you pretty much get them all there. Although I don't really think you really needed 7 particularly. I think they've done it just to make more money, because essentially you could have really just bought 4, couldn't you, and then 3 Figure and Dans, because they're the same figures, and then you get all the other instruments in that 4-pack. You kind of get the same instruments that you got with Figure and Dan, because he came with 3 instruments in that 4-pack. Very, very strange. So I don't think so. I think going forward, 4 will be the sweet number. I think that's the best way to do it. And if you wanted more of them, you could always buy sort of 2 4-packs as it were. And that's if you can get them, because let's face it, they always seem to be in short supply, and also they don't seem to be available for everybody around the world, because they're Hasbro Pulse exclusives, which is a bit of a shame. Morgan Pogue says, hey Bossk, love the content, keep it up. Question for next week, do you think the Bad Batch figures will have removable helmets, or will they be swappable helmets like with Bo-Katan and Fennec? So yeah, it was difficult to tell by the images that they gave us, because most of them had pictures of him with the helmet on, and then in the bubble it showed that it did have the helmet off, and I think it was confirmed on one of the Q&As that it will be a removable helmet. And you can kind of tell by the images as well, because the helmet is ever so slightly oversized for the figure. Not as bad as the clone troopers that we've got, but it is ever so slightly oversized to accommodate that head underneath. Chris Rook says, greeting Bossk, another great week of content since you've had multiple videos. My question is, now that Hasbro has announced that they are re-releasing Captain Hauser with the correct name pill, which version do you think will be the more common version or easier one to get? Or do you think Hasbro will make the corrected version an Amazon exclusive as well? So first off, it is not going to be an exclusive. It will be part of a wave. I can't actually remember whether it's going to be part of wave 1 or 2 of next year. I think it might be the second wave of next year that he's included in. So there's that. It's not going to be an exclusive. Now, which one's going to be more rare? I don't really know. I think that figure will probably be 1 per case. That's just my guess. I don't know that for a fact. But let's face it, the Bad Batch 4-pack is, at least in the UK, very, very easy to get hold of. I think you may even be able to still order it on Amazon. I don't know for a fact. I haven't checked, but you know, there was lots of stock of that eventually. Not at the beginning when it first came out, but eventually there was lots of stock. So that Hauser figure is actually quite easy to get. So we'll just have to wait and see, you know, on that assortment, whether it's going to be 1 or 2 per pack, but I guess that it'll be 1. Philip H says, thanks for another great video, Boss. Question for next week. At PulseCon yesterday, Hasbro debuted 6-inch and retro lines for Indiana Jones, but no highly detailed articulated 3.75-inch line. Do you think this indicates Hasbro is moving away from 3.75-inch lines like TVC? No, I don't think that. I think this is just purely of the case where they can almost start again with Indiana Jones. I think, you know, when the 2008 line came out, the 3.75-inch line, they weren't doing 6-inch figures back then, or at least I don't think they were for Star Wars anyway. So essentially it's quite a new thing for them to be able to do Indiana Jones in 6-inch, and I personally am not really sort of precious about the scale when it comes to anything other than Star Wars. So I really do like the look of those 6-inch figures for the Indiana Jones line, and to me the retros, I think that's completely natural for them to do that. The yellow cards, I think they look great. So I'm quite sort of interested in both of those lines. I'm not really too bothered that we're missing the super articulated 3.75-inch line, because I don't really have too many of the original 2008 line. And also the best figures from that line were in a 2011 Comic-Con exclusive where you got Tote and people like that. All the best figures were in that. So very, very difficult to get hold of. So yeah, no, I don't think it really affects TVC whatsoever. Adam Goodingheim says, question, who did it better, the HasLab Razor Crest or the new UCS one from Lego? PS, are you getting one? I'm not getting one. I just don't have the space. Who did it better? I think they both look incredible. Obviously, we've got the Vintage Collection one, which I absolutely love. And when you look at the Lego one, I think they've absolutely nailed it. I haven't watched any reviews of it or anything yet, but it looks spot on. But hefty price tag on that one. I think it's £520 in the UK, which is a lot more than the Razor Crest, isn't it? So it just shows you the price of things these days. Fetmatic says, here's my question. Since Hunter is coming and the rest of the team as well, is there a possibility of seeing RCs in the Vintage Collection? So that's Republic Commandos, I think what you're saying. And I think if it follows exactly what the Black Series done, I think you can most probably expect that. I very much doubt that they're going to use the Hunter sculpt on Hunter himself and maybe some of the other ones in that line. They're going to repaint it and use it elsewhere, and those Republic Commandos seems quite natural if they've done it in the Black Series already. Tim Matos says, question for next week. The 4 Return of the Jedi Jabba's Goons shown at Hasbro PulseCon, are those some of the figures you knew about for the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi Vintage Collection, or are these something different? Thanks and hope all is well. Okay, so basically, obviously, when you sort of hear about things, things can change. And initially, when I heard about the reissue of some of the Jabba's Goons, I heard that Weequay was going to be in one of the waves, which now it transpires that he will be. But I heard that the 4 other Jabba Goons were going to be like a reissue wave, like all those other reissue waves that they've been doing. However, since the Q&As the other day, it turns out that they are going to be part of waves as well, spread out across the year, like the 6th figure in each wave. Very much like they've done with the Echo-based Trooper in the Bo-Katan wave, for example. So I think they announced them as, what was it, Woof, Kithaba, Nikto and Yakface, wasn't it? And also at the time that I heard that it was going to be Klaatu, which I thought was very strange because he's a fairly new figure since, 2018 or whatever. But since then, it's been confirmed as Woof. Now, obviously, when information gets passed down, it's very easy to get those two confused. So maybe it's just sort of Chinese whispers or whatever. But the fact that they're going to be in waves, that's new to me. As I said, I did think they were going to be reissue waves. In terms of other things, other figures, there are going to be other Return of the Jedi figures. It's not just these sort of repacks and reissues. There are going to be others as well. So don't worry about that. These are on top of other stuff that's coming. And Stephen Novak asks, are the Jabba's Goons going to be, new sculpts or repacks? They are going to be straight repacks. And he asks if it's going to be the Kithaba with the red, brown or black or whatever it is headband. I've got the one with the sort of dark grey black headband there, and I've also got that one loose as well, but the red one is the accurate one, the one that they've got on the picture there. I do have that one carded as well, but he's packed away, and I think that's probably the one that they will release. I think that was the corrected one originally, and I think that's the one they'll go with. Mighty Makoko says, question for next week. Hey Bossk, what are your thoughts on the Gentle Giant Star Wars Kenner style jumbo figures? Do you collect any of them? Do you like what they have been putting out recently, like the Mandalorian, Vader, Luke Skywalker concept, Grand Moff Tarkin, Sand Trooper and Darth Maul? And are you interested in the new ones coming for Book of Boba Fett, Rebels Grand Admiral Thrawn, or Book of Boba Fett Tusken Raider? I definitely saw the Admiral Thrawn on Instagram. He looked pretty cool. I have the Bossk one, basically. That's hanging up on the back of my door in this room. And I do have a couple of the others. I think I have the Biker Scout and Leia Hoth. But again, they're packed away in my loft because I just don't have room for them. And that's the biggest problem with them for me. They're called jumbo figures. They are massive. And it's just, if you're a collector of those, you need one big collector room. And unfortunately, even 6-inch figures take up a lot of room. But those ones, they're just huge. But don't get me wrong. I think they look fantastic. And I have the Bossk one, as I said. Admiral Akbar Mush says, hey, Boss Bounty. Always love your content. Thanks for all you do. Here's a good one for you next week. I just watched the Q&A and you and Chris with Hasbro on Bantha Skull's YouTube. I swear I thought your eyes were going to fully roll back in your head when hearing from them that the Black Series collectors feel the same as we do in terms of new figures tooling for TVC, and that the Black Series collectors want more. And then the guy from, I presume, a Black Series collector YouTube site saying TVC gets more than Black Series and that they wanted more. Basically reversing how we feel. And I thought you might fall out of your seat. I did have a good laugh. I feel your pain, of course. You couldn't say anything there, but what did you think? Please don't hold back. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Okay, so, first of all, I don't want to get into like a war of Black Series versus the Vintage Collection. I respect Black Series collectors. I know some of the people that watch my channel collect both, so I don't have a problem with that at all. But I think it's the misinformation side of it that I don't like. So the guy that you're referring to was referring to the Bespin Guards and Lobot as being newly tooled figures. And if you sort of look into it, they're not. Basically, they use many parts of some quite old figures, actually. Yes, we're getting those figures in the line, and they're great, don't get me wrong, but you can't say they're new tooling. My point about the whole new tooling thing is that it's always the new media figures that need the new tooling, generally. So, they've got the whole of the Rebels crew. They've got lots more solo figures than us. They've got, 10 Andor figures already. Admittedly, some of those are new tooling. The Obi-Wan figures, all the Inquisitors, this was my point. And if you look back about new tooling over the year, Black Series definitely gets a lot more. And that was our main complaint, basically. We're, of course, happy to get sort of kit bashes when they can do them, making new figures out of old parts, if they remain accurate, or as accurate as they can be. But when there's a brand new figure from a brand new show that requires new tooling, the vintage collection just isn't getting those. And that was the main point. Owen Brown says, question for next week. Do you think we might get a definitive Empire Strikes Back Boba Fett? The one we have is very outdated by today's standards. That is something that I would absolutely love. And with all of the Mandalorian parts that they've made in the last year, you would think that they might be able to sort of, mock something up for us for an Empire Strikes Back Boba Fett. I don't know of one that's coming for next year, but I do know there will be more Boba Fett next year. So, they're never going to sort of waste that Return of the Jedi sculpt on just one repaint, which was the droids version. They're going to be using that some more, so don't worry about that. But in terms of ESB, I'm not too sure what they're doing with that. Simply Vic says, hi Bossk, long time viewer of the channel, following since 2020 when my interest in collecting expanded. This is also my first time asking a question for next week, so thank you Simply Vic. And they say, question, with the announcement of the Clone Wars 20th anniversary line, what figures, either new sculpts or repaints, vehicles do you think we can expect in the vintage collection to be released next year in 2023? Personally, I would like to see a Republic gunship or General Grievous or even a Count Dooku. Thank you for all you do on your channel. Thank you so much for the question. And you're not the only person that's asked this question, so it's a really good one to pick. And I'm really, really pleased that we've actually seen already one of the new card backs with that sort of 20th anniversary on there. Now, some of you might be saying, hang on a minute, it's not the 20th anniversary of the Clone Wars. No, I think it's the 20th anniversary of the Genndy animated Star Wars. So I think what they're doing is they're saying, let's just have like a mini Clone Wars beat, as it were. And, we've already had the Clone Commander Havoc revealed. I would imagine that we're going to be getting others using that sculpt and repainting that sculpt again. I'm sure you can guess the characters. If you know your Clone Wars, I'm not going to say them on here, but I would imagine that we are going to get those. The vehicle one does really intrigue me, because if there ever was a time to re-release that gunship, then that is next year, isn't it? For that line. That would be awesome, because I know a lot of people do want that thing re-released. I would definitely buy one. So maybe that is the case. And, maybe we will get another set of Genndy figures where they're, as you say, where they repaint General Grievous, and I think my mate Only One Kenobi has done a video on which ones they could possibly do in that line. So I think we're going to get more than the one or two figures with that little logo in the top left-hand corner on the card back. So yeah, that'll be a mini beat for next year and something to look forward to. Lil Pookie says, look forward every Sunday to see this series. Thank you so much, buddy. Question for next week, how many Mandalorians have you purchased recently for army building? I've bought a case of each type, one to open, one for carded, 6 for the platoon shelf I've started. It's quickly added up in recent weeks. Airborne and Super Commando captains arriving tomorrow. Thanks again. So I didn't buy too many of the captains. I bought maybe 1 or 2 of them. I bought 8 of the Death Watch Mandalorian, the one from the live action show. And I bought about 5 or 6 of the Airborne version from the Clone Wars, which is one of my favourites. He is such a great figure. Now the problem is that I bought 6 of those, but I only managed to order, I think, 2 of the Super Commando, which is not great because I need at least like 4 or 5 to face off against those Airborne troopers. So I'm a little bit disappointed in myself for not ordering more of those, because I think in the UK they're kind of sold out everywhere. So maybe I can pick some more up in the future somehow. Link2195 says, do you think any new vehicles or reissued vehicles will get a reveal any time? waiting for a new Republic gunship. See, there's another person that wants the Republic gunship. I would say keep an eye on Jason from Yak Face's Instagram posts. I think he did one the other day and it was a picture of the Endor bunker, but then if you swiped right you will see an image of the ATST, and that's kind of something that I've heard rumblings about, so we may expect that as a reissue for the Battle of Endor. And they did say on one of the Q&As that I was watching that you know, expect more stuff to be around that bunker, so maybe that's what he was talking about. So in terms of new, we haven't had any new vehicles in ages. The speed bike is all new apparently. Other than that, nothing I've heard. We'll have to wait and see what we get, but I think vehicles isn't something that we're going to see too often, new ones anyway. Octolux says, what are your thoughts on boutique customizers such as Stan Solo? I own a number of custom figs and for me, I love them. Yeah, I think they're great. I think the customizing work they do is absolutely fantastic. I've seen a few of Stan Solo's. I think he did the Slave Leia. I think he did. Looked absolutely fantastic. I'm personally not into sort of the recreations of ones that we've already got. I mean, that's just a personal preference. But I love the ones that we never got in the Kenner line, you know, because that essentially for me is what Hasbro should be doing with the retro collection. But they're not. They're doing, you know, Farm Boy Luke and what have you. The Jedi Collector says, hey boss, thanks for a great PulseCon coverage. My question for next week is, how do you think Hasbro is going to be able to manage covering all of the relevant material next year? They'll need to fill out more Andor figures, and then you have Tales of the Jedi, Mando Season 3, Ahsoka, Bad Batch Season 2, and Skeleton Crew, all set to release. Plus the anniversary of Return of the Jedi and the Clone Wars anniversary that they said they're celebrating. Seems like they'll be spread way too thin unless we see a drastic increase in output from them. Well, this is the problem that we've had since the Vintage Collection came back. You know, this is why we've got so few figures in Solo, for example. We don't have the Bad Batch. We don't have anything from Rebels, you know. This is the problem. There's too much media, and Hasbro's answer is that, you know, isn't it great that we live in this great time of so much Star Wars content? Well, it is if we had a company that could actually, you know, put the figures out for them. That's the problem. And of course, there are many people that collect the Vintage Collection that want original trilogy 096 characters or never before made original trilogy characters. There's people that want the prequels still. So it is very, very difficult for them. I understand that. But as you say, the only way they're going to be able to do that is by increasing the output, and unfortunately we can't really see that happening. We do get a lot of repaints, a lot of repacks, and I think they're up to about 11 newly tooled figures per year, which is slightly up on 2020. It's just not enough, is it? We just need more, and with more shows that come out, the backlog gets bigger and bigger. JJ says, hey Tim BB, love all your content on the channel and I'm a dedicated loyalist to the Bossk Bounty Army. Thank you, mate. Question for next week. Since music is a huge part of my life, aside from Star Wars collecting, and you're based in the UK, I'm curious on which of the following you would choose and why. The Sex Pistols, Joy Division or the Smiths. All bands that I personally love. Thank you in advance and keep up the great work. Jay from LA. See, that is a very difficult choice to pick out of those three, but I think if I was to sort of remove one from those three, I would first remove the Sex Pistols, and then it would be between Joy Division and the Smiths, and on any given day I could sort of have a different answer for you. I guess if I was going to say, you know, how often I listen to one or the other in my car, for example, it would probably be the Smiths, but they're both great bands, man. Really, really good. All right then, guys, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it hasn't been too depressing for you. Appreciate you watching. Drop a like down below if you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave your questions in the comment section below for next week's episode to keep this going. Episode 150 next week, guys. So thank you so much for watching and thanks for the support, and we shall see you on the next one.